You're listening to Business Talk Radio, where we take business to the next level.
Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn connects you with experts from all over the world to help you take charge of your career, your business, and your life. Rap along with us. Visit drjacalyn.com to learn how to become a guest or a sponsor. And now, the doctor is in.
Hello and welcome to Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn presents Conversations of Substance live here on Business Talk Radio and social media. I am your host and executive producer, Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck. I am a certified life and career coach. And with me today is my co-host, Mr. Alex Kaplan. Let's bring him onto the program. Hi, Alex.
Hi, everybody.
Great to see you.
Hi, Dr. Jacalyn. It's nice to be here.
It's fantastic. So we have a very special guest that you brought to us today. Why don't you share with us what the purpose of our show is, and then a little bit about Jay Schiff.
Perfect. Thank you, Jacalyn. So hi, everybody. So on Conversations of Substance, we invite you to join us and a weekly guest as we vulnerably share our stories and the lessons we've learned in our journeys of overcoming shame, blame, and stigma of addiction, all mental and physical illnesses, and every isolating, life-changing struggle that we each experience. Though our circumstances, the circumstances of our struggles are unique, our human experience and emotional journeys through them are quite similar. You're not crazy, you're not alone, and others do get it. Together, we are all of substance. So with that said, today our guest is a great friend of mine, and let me tell you a little bit about him. So Jay Shifman is a mental health and substance misuse and recovery speaker, coach, and advocate, and the host of the Choose Your Struggle podcast. As a person in long-term recovery, Jay is motivated by the immense privilege of receiving a second chance in a world where too many people aren't granted a first. Since entering recovery, he's dedicated his life to helping end the stigma around these topics by telling his story and challenging people all over the world to think differently about drug use and misuse, and advocating for voices that are habitually ignored. Jay is the graduate of Northern Kentucky University and lives in Charleston with his wife, Lauren, and their dog, Nell. With that, I'd love to welcome Jay.
Welcome, Jay.
It's an honor to be here, and I got to say, Alex, you did that perfectly. I do this for a living, and I still screw up when it comes to introducing people and reading bios. It's so difficult sometimes, so thank you for that.
Absolutely, man. You wrote a great bio. I didn't write that, everybody. Jay wrote that because I tried to write that, and Jay was like, "You idiot! Let me do this for you." But
you know what's funny, Jay? What you said is so true. I always mess up people's last names. I'll ask them 3 or 4 times, and then I go live. I'm like, oh, I just forget how to say it. So nice job, Alex.
Hey, thanks, guys. I appreciate it. This is why I do this show, so I can start my day with just accolades and just compliments.
I'm happy for this entire show just to be about how amazing Alex is. That's something that I talked to him a lot about. It's just he's a very amazing person. So we can do a whole hour on that if you want.
Amazing. That's perfect. It's so it's my 13-year anniversary, which is a miracle.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I gave my for Of Substance, we're a nonprofit. We did our board meeting, our annual board meeting this past Sunday. And in the year-end review, I had, here's all the things that we achieved this year. It was like $24,000 raised in the month of December, and 10 virtual workshops facilitated. One Katie did not leave Alex. I'm dead serious. I put that wonderful. In there. And my COO, Mark, is just like, you have to put that in there every year because that is an achievement every year.
Amazing.
It certainly is. Wow, fantastic.
Jay, hey, thanks for coming. If you don't mind, why don't we get started by you telling us a little bit about what you really do and a little bit about Choose Your Struggle.
You mean when I'm not just being a cheerleader for Alex Kaplan and Of Substance, right? Yeah, because I got to say to the listeners and viewers, I not only am I really lucky to call Alex a friend, but I am a financial supporter of Substance because I truly believe in what they are doing, what they're trying to accomplish. And our missions really overlap a lot. You know, I truly believe in the idea that vulnerability is what's going to change the work that we are all trying to accomplish. And namely, that's helping end the stigma around substance misuse. For me, that's also mental health, helping people understand the histories of drug policy in this country and how it's impacted the views on people who use drugs, which is, when you get back to the source. And I'm reading about drug policy history is something that I'm super into it in sort of a nerdy sense, but it's really fascinating to read about, from the late 1800s and early 1900s, how much of what we think about drug use and the policies around this date back to this time. And sadly, most of it is built on racism, sexism, a lot of thinking that permeated our society in those days. So that's something that I'm very passionate about, is helping people understand that the way you feel about people like me who have struggled with substance misuse, or people who are currently, drug users, dates back to a long way, and it's kind of built on nothing. And once people understand that, it's easier to change the way they see, those struggling with substance misuse and those who choose to use drugs.
That's so well said. It makes me think, it's built on a system of control, like everything else, right? It's just, and that's okay. But that's like, as we grow and as we progress, as we evolve as people, as individuals, and as a society, we start to see where we simplified things in a way that caused far more harm than good. And this is clearly one of those places. So, Jay, the work you do, I can't believe I get to be your friend. Everybody, Jay just found me online. Jay reached out to me because we have a mutual friend in our lives who was just like, Jay, you should check out Of Substance. And Jay reached out, cold called me, and was just like, hey, let's talk. And I got to know Jay and the work that he does. He's a phenomenal advocate. He speaks all over the country. And he tells his story. So Jay's podcast, Choose Your Struggle, is very much in line with ours. It's just about like owning your struggle, owning everything you've been through, and overcoming it, and the lessons you've learned along the way, and how those lessons might be able to help other people. Do you mind telling us a little bit about how the podcast came to be?
I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, so it is, something that I'm very passionate about is helping, like I said, educate and seeking to end stigma around these topics by talking about them openly in a vulnerable way. My background is public speaking. I got started in this work in 2015, when the first time I told my story on stage. And since then, that's been my main focus, is telling the story, in front of groups as small as 5 or 6 people, all the way up to hundreds of people. And when 2020 hit in the way that it did, and it became obvious that public speaking was no longer going to be able to be a thing that I was going to do, I started looking for other outlets, right? And in January of 2020, so just about a year ago, I started the Choose Your Struggle podcast. And it is seeking to do all these things that I was doing on stage, just in more of a different way. Now, very soon after that, the pandemic shut down, everything as I was afraid it was going to do, and the podcast became my number one outlet, and that was a privilege for me, that I had the time to focus on it, and not only that, but I realized that the ways that I was traditionally making money and supporting myself financially weren't going to happen in 2020, and now it's looking like maybe not even 2021, and so I, again, had the privilege of stepping back and saying, if I'm going to see my income just decimated this year, how do I want to spend my time? And the answer was being of service. And so the podcast was the main focus, making sure that these messages were getting out in a different way. But I also turned my attention to a different part of my business that's always been a smaller one, and that's coaching. And in March or early April, I put up a call on my podcast, on social media, on my website, just saying, hey, if anybody needs something, if you need someone to listen, if you need someone to validate the way you're feeling, if you want some advice, I'm here. I've got all the time in the world, since I'm not doing, my job is sort of on hold. And I anticipated 2 or 3 people would reach out, and I was swamped. It was like you wouldn't believe. The next couple of months, it was a full-time job just doing those calls and the podcast. Now, a couple of those people became paying coaching clients, which was wonderful, but 90% of them didn't. They just needed someone to listen. They needed someone to tell them it's okay to feel the way you're feeling. We're all sort of just holding on by the seat of our pants right now, and fingers crossed that we're going to get through this together. So that was very sort of purifying to me to say, all right, I can still be of service. And it really motivated me to double down on the podcast, on some of these other projects like Rock Bottom Storytellers, which is a storytelling event where people like Alex, who was part of my event last week, come up and tell their story live on Facebook, on YouTube. That one, again, I anticipated maybe 20, 30 people tuning in, and 200 people took time out of their night to listen to these stories of Alex and 3 others. That was incredible. So, that's my goal, is to talk about these things openly, to help end that stigma. And above all else is to be vulnerable and show people it's okay. And not only that, but it can be pretty cool to be open and put yourself out there.
Wow, I love that. I love how you talked about being of service. I think that's so important, and that's what this whole program is about, right, Alex? Do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it's so fun. The way you talk about being of service is very simple. It's not about like going out of your way and buying somebody groceries or doing charity work that is like what some people might think of as a chore, but instead it's as simple as listening, right? And just being present. And that's this remarkable and huge work that you do. And then taking that to the next level and creating this platform, this great podcast from which you give other people a chance to tell their stories so that it might hit with others. And then allow yourself to just be present to listen to whoever's willing to talk to you vulnerably. But you leading with this message of vulnerability is just something that we've always connected over, and I think it's just so admirable.
I'm wondering, Jay and Alex, what do you find, when you're doing your podcast or you're coaching and you're just reaching out to people? Do you find that people are a little reluctant to be vulnerable, or do you find that people are just, they want to talk to somebody, they want to get it out? I know it varies person by person, but what do you find generally?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. And you're right, it does vary from person to person, but predominantly there are people who it's sort of like, if you're sitting on a park bench and someone sits down and starts up a little casual conversation, you're like, all right, I know there's something else that you want to talk about here. How can I make you feel comfortable in having that conversation? So I have a saying on my podcast that Alex knows well, and that's vulnerability begets vulnerability and empathy begets empathy. So, there's this idea of how do you get someone to open up when you know they want to, and you see it done so poorly sometimes, that people trying to like beat it out of them, like, just tell me what's wrong, and that never works, right? You got to show them that you're worthy of them being open and vulnerable to. So I always start that by saying, something that I'm going through, or mentioning, this is something that I've been feeling. And it's that way of being like, hey, I'm taking that first step to show you that I'm worthy of your trust. I'm worthy of your vulnerability.
I really love that you included so many different facets of that, looking at different people and what they're feeling and how they communicate about it or don't. I know somebody reached out to me recently and said that they had watched one of my other shows and they felt inclined to be a guest because they felt like it was a safe atmosphere to be able to share a story. So I always love that. Alex, what about you? What have you found in regards to that?
So I'm so glad you asked that question. You're so good at this. So I got connected with somebody the other night who is somebody who works in nonprofits. We were just connecting because we both do similar work and it would be good. And I get on the phone with her, Jacalyn, I'm interested in connecting you with her because I told her all about you. And she wanted to know about Of Substance. And so I tell her about Of Substance, and I tell her about, I can't talk about the work that I do without talking about me and talking about my struggle and where I am now compared to where I got started. And it was so funny. I wasn't asking anything, and I was leading with vulnerability. And in everything we do, we lead with vulnerability because, as Jay said, vulnerability begets vulnerability. So I feel as though if you start with vulnerability, you set up an environment that's comfortable for other people to feel comfortable to open up and share and let their guard down. And so this girl on the phone, I'm talking about me and substance use and how my problems in the past. And she's just like, honestly, I didn't expect to be talking about this, but 2 years ago, I was diagnosed with Crohn's and colitis. And it's been a crazy journey for me. And this is the last thing I ever thought I'd be talking about on this conversation with you. It's just a hello, what do you do professionally kind of thing. But you set up, and she said to me, she's just like, Alex, you set this tone of just like vulnerability, empathy, and comfort just in the way that you speak. And I think that it's not anything that I do specifically. I don't think there's a magic to anything that I do. I think it's just a willingness to put myself out there at my base. You know, I say this all the time, but James Joyce said that in the particular lies the universal. And to me, what that means is the more specific you are about what you authentically believe, think, and feel at your core, the more surprised you'll be that the majority of other people identify and relate. So lead with vulnerability, lead with empathy, just like Jay said, and people will follow.
All right. You don't know where it's going to take you. Thanks for sharing that. I know people have always told me their deep, dark secrets or whatever's going on with them. I don't know why, but for some reason, people feel comfortable talking to me, which I really appreciate and I valued over the years. It's actually time to take a commercial. But before we do, I want to give out the phone number. I'm so excited, everybody out there. This is the first day that I'm able to take phone calls all by my little self. And the number to call is 609-961-1699. Here's the banner for that. It is 609-961-1699. I think I have it wrong there. Okay. We will be right back after this commercial break. Stay with us on Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn presents Conversations of Substance.
Hey everybody, my name is Ralph Graves Jr. I'm the host of the Ralph Graves Jr. Show, and I want to invite you to pick up my book, Unstoppable. I wrote a book called Unstoppable. It's 7 universal laws that will transform how you pursue and achieve success. The one thing that my 20 years of law enforcement has taught me is that no matter who you are, we are all governed by universal laws, like gravity. But in this book, we're going to talk about laws like the law of forgiveness, laws like the law of control, the law of intelligent practice, the law of expectancy. I was able to see how those, no matter what their background was, those who identified and treated these laws with respect, they were able to go on and lead successful lives. So pick up this book, and you can go ahead and pick it up at Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, RalphGravesJr.com, where anywhere where fine books are sold. Thank you.
There are 7.7 billion people on Earth today. 40% of these people are under the age of 25. Young adults are the most fertile mission field in the world today. In Scripture, we see Jesus pouring his life into 12 young adults who he equipped to change the world and all of history. Like Jesus, we believe that the best approach to reach the world with the gospel is to invest in young, emerging leaders and equip them to build disciple-making movements. Concentric is the notion of surrounding and sharing a common center. Our center is the model and strategy of Jesus for both leadership development and ministry formation. As a global alliance, we provide equipping in biblical leadership based on Jesus' example in the New Testament. Jesus modeled for us how to make disciples that reproduce. Focusing on leadership development is key to creating movements that spread the gospel and Jesus' disciple-making strategy to young leaders around the globe. Our Ministry Alliance partners are actively equipping leaders and building movements of multiplication that reproduce the life of Christ. Join us today to equip young leaders with Jesus' strategy that will change cities and nations.
The session that we had with BCAT was really entertaining and enlightening. We were able to put together some very specific steps that we as individuals can take, and it was really fun to all come together and see sort of where we're going as a team and how we can all get there together.
We had a tremendous experience with the BCAT partners. One of the challenges that we have as an organization is to make sure that we have the right people in the right chairs doing the right thing. To do that well, you have to have synergy. You can try to dream up ways to make sure that your group does that, or you can rely on experts. We would recommend BCAT partners to anybody who's looking to take their organization to the next level.
Academy Sedan and Limo is a full-service transportation company serving the Philadelphia metropolitan area with full knowledge of the New York City, Baltimore, and Washington, D.C. areas. We pride ourselves on being the most dependable, conscientious company in the industry. Our always on-time service and dependable pricing make us the company to call for any event or occasion. Our vehicles can accommodate any size party for any occasion. Our vehicles range from four-door sedans to SUVs to minivans to limo buses to full-size tour buses and can accommodate groups of 2 to 100. We offer airport shuttle service or over-the-road service without limitation regarding mileage or time, and no drive is too long or too far. So if you find yourself in need of transportation of any type with any vehicle, give us a call at 610-842-4564 and let us show you what a real transportation company can do for you.
Use code ACADEMY2020 to receive 20% off your first 3 rides, including parking and tolls.
Ladies and gentlemen, and here it is, the most listened to radio on the planet. Even the other stations are tuned into.
You're listening to Business Talk Radio, where we take business to the next level.
I love that handbag.
Thank you.
Generation. That's great.
Who doesn't want a Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn handbag, right?
I want
Available
one.
soon. Coming to a store near you soon.
So, Jacalyn, what about you? I mean, you said like people have always just talked to you and told you all their secrets. Why do you think people do that with you?
I've always just been really interested in other people and hearing what's going on with them without judgment. And I really genuinely care about people. So I don't know, maybe that comes across.
It's really interesting. I think we've all experienced quite a bit of judgment in our lives. I think everybody has, like from whatever circumstance you come to life with, we all experience judgment. And so like the more empathetically you listen, the better chance you have of people just opening up to you.
I agree. Very good point. I want to give the phone number again because it wasn't right on the banner, but it's right now. And we want to know that this equipment is working. So if you're out there, give us a call, 609-961-1699. Okay.
So Jay, do you mind? So this show is about the stories, the struggles we've been through, and the lessons we've learned along the way. Do you mind taking us through just a little bit of your story, however much you feel comfortable sharing?
Sure. I'll give the short version because, as Alex knows, I have the 5, the 15, and the 45-minute version of the story. So, yeah, I mean, very, very sort of briefly, my issues with substance misuse are not the one that most people are aware of. My struggle started with a misdiagnosis in my teenage years when after going through puberty and being put on medication for ADHD and struggling with some mental health stuff like depression, anxiety, OCD, my therapist saw that sort of perfect storm that he himself had helped create and gave it the name of bipolar disorder. And as we know, with a lot of misdiagnoses, there's a lot of negative outcomes of those moments. And for me, that was becoming completely physically and mentally dependent on my medication. So by my early 20s, I was taking handfuls multiple times a day of one particular medication and struggling with misuse and over 5. And so the summer of my, I would have been 23. I attempted suicide twice. I overdosed. I spent 3 weeks in a lockdown unit, 3 months in a long-term care facility, what we would have called a mental institution 50 years ago, before finally deciding that I needed to get off these medications. And spent the sort of first 4 months of 2010 going through what's called step-down detox, where you take a little bit less of the medication every couple of days until there's not anything left in you. And that's when my life sort of, restarted. Most of my symptoms began to disappear pretty quickly. And by the time I really say that my recovery was not complete, because it's always ongoing, but really had hit its stride about 4 or 5 years later, almost all those symptoms were gone, and I was in a much, much better place, the best place I'd been in my entire life. And that's when I started speaking about this and telling my story, and really combating the stigma around substance misuse and mental health struggles and the like. And like I said, I've been doing that ever since, going on 6 years now. And last 2 years as my full-time job, and sort of what I wake up every morning and dedicate myself to.
So thanks, man. Thank you for
Wow.
always being so open and honest and vulnerable and genuine. What is it that you find when you see the power of what you do in just telling your story? What is it you find when you tell your story to big groups and small groups? Like what's the reaction?
Well, there was something that was said earlier that I love, when it's someone like who says, "I didn't expect to be telling this story," or whatever the case is. Those are my favorite moments, right? When I've been at networking events, and of course, this is who I am. There's no playing nice and especially down here in the South, where you don't talk about those things. No, I don't do that. I am always this person. And so, I've been at networking events telling people, yeah, I talk about the time that I attempted suicide and overdosed, and now, all this, and you get a lot of the yay and people walking away. And then you get a lot of other people who come up and, really want to talk about it. And I get a lot of those moments of, I've never told anyone this, and I love those. Those are my favorite conversations, because that's a person that I can go, you know what? That's a wonderful story. You can really help a lot of people by telling that. But not only that, you can help yourself. I mean, the greatest weight that I ever got off myself was the first time I told my story on stage. It literally changed my life in 15 minutes, because not only was I like doing this, I'm going to keep doing this, but it was, I feel better about me. I feel better about who I am. I'm no longer carrying around this baggage, feeling like I was a failure, or all these things that society tells us about substance misuse and mental health. And none of them are true. But as someone asked me not long ago, they said, well, why did you feel that you were a failure? And I said, that's such a great question. No one had ever asked me that before. And the reality was, nobody ever looked at me and said, you're a failure because you struggle with substance misuse, or you're a failure because you struggle with your mental health. It was, I had picked that up from being in this society, the way we talk about people with substance misuse and mental health struggles, the way we portray them in movies and TV shows. I'm in a chat on a message board today about someone fighting me because they believe that calling someone struggling with misuse an addict is okay. And they're not in the community. This is just what they think from seeing movies and TV and all this kind of stuff. And it's helpful to help people understand why that is so harmful. And this is what I take away from doing this, is I get to have that impact. I get to get up in front of someone and see them change the way they think about substance misuse by going, well, his story doesn't really fit my preconceived notions about this. And then you see those wheels turning. And I get people coming up to me after these speeches all the time who are angry, who are just hurt, and they don't know why they feel this way. And it's because what they just heard doesn't mesh with how they've thought about drug use, how they've thought about drugs and misuse for like their entire life. And I get a lot of that. And I say to them, look, I would love to have this conversation with you. In fact, I started building this into my speeches. If you are feeling a certain way after hearing me speak, take a couple of moments for mindfulness and figure out why you're feeling that way. And if you think I got something wrong, I want to hear that. Obviously, I'm not perfect and I'm always learning how to do this better. I want to talk to you about it. If you're just mad because of the way I made you feel, that is a very different conversation I'd still would love to have, but that needs to go a little bit differently. So those are sort of the moments of learning. Those are the moments of real change happening in front of me.
Damn.
So powerful, by the way. I have 2 or 3 questions, but we have a comment, by the way, from Facebook. Your transparency will help many people. Kudos. Thank you so much, Facebook user who's watching us. We'd love to know who you are, but Facebook doesn't allow us on certain pages for whatever reason. I think it's in the private groups, they don't let you. So you hit on something that I thought about. You had your misdiagnosis and attempted suicide and all of the things that you went through for your struggle. Was there a time when you were resentful, that you were angry and you had to work through all of that?
Oh, 100%. Oh, man. I have to thank a therapist here real quick, because I did not trust therapists for about 6-7 years after I went through what I went through. And it was because one of them almost killed me. And so I was really afraid of talking to the therapist. And I had a couple in there and it didn't go well. And I finally had a really exceptional therapist again. And I talked to her and she asked me why I had never, reached out to this person, or we got into a conversation about my previous therapist. And I told her how angry I was. I told her how, resentful and how I wanted to see him locked up and all this anger that I was feeling. And she said, but why? And I was like, I want him to look me in the eye and know what he did to me. And she said, well, who cares? Number one, he will never admit that he screwed up, because if he did, that's illegal. He will go to jail. So he can't do that. He cannot tell you I made a mistake. Number two, you're only doing that because you want closure. It's not about him. It's about you. And that knocked me on my butt. I was like, oh my God, you're right. This is not about this person at all. This is about me wanting someone to tell me it's not my fault. And when I realized that through her help, it became very easy to go, well, I don't need that. I know it's not my fault. Why do I need him to tell me that? So I was very resentful. And sort of the flip side of that was that I was still wrestling with this idea of like, I'm not special, right? If he made this mistake with me, he definitely made this mistake with other people. And I'm scared of what he could be doing to others. And then he retired and I was like, all right, I don't have to feel that way anymore. He's done with his career. But the idea that I needed him to say something or admit fault for me went out the window after working with this therapist.
Yeah. Go for it.
We can arm wrestle. I hope people out there are listening, because that is such a salient point. We can blame anyone and everyone when we're struggling with something or throughout our journey, but it only hurts us, right? And there's so much judgment and resentment and anger out there now. And whomever it is you think is responsible for wherever it is you are, let it go. Like, you really have to let it go.
So I was having so much trouble during COVID in the first several months. Like everything just, the anvil of the world fell on all of us. And like, I'm lucky enough. Everybody was healthy in my life. I'm good. But like, it was a emotionally crazy time. And I was just blaming things. And it was easier to get if I was depressed, it was easier to turn everything into blame and anger and shifting that. And somebody gave me the Book of Forgiving, Desmond Tutu. And I got to be honest, I read a quarter of it. I didn't even read the whole thing. It changed my life. The first quarter of the book changed my life, because it begins by explaining that forgiveness is not a gift you give to somebody else. It's a gift you give yourself, right? It's not, forgiving somebody is not something that is about anybody else. It's allowing you to let go. And actually, Jacalyn on oh my God, I'm forgetting what it's called. Ralph Graves.
Okay.
Ralph Graves was talking about who just had his commercial about Unstoppable, his book, on your show that we were on together, talked about a snake in the grass slithering along the grass and cutting himself on a saw, and then looking at the saw, wrapping itself around the saw, and the tighter it wrapped itself around the saw to get back at the saw, the more it just hurt itself. And it's the same idea of blame and just forgiveness. And it's just something that the sooner you let go, the sooner you have a chance of just like moving forward and feeling looser and feeling ease and growing. But man, I look at you, Jay, and I honestly forget your story. Each time you tell it, I forget the low points. I forget that you got to, and then you tell me each time, I attempted suicide twice. I nearly overdosed once. And then I was in a what we would 50 years ago call a mental institution. And I look at you and I'm just like, I would never guess any of those things about you. And so the fact that somebody when I look at you, speaks to these things and says these things out loud, that's exactly the power of what you do. It's just
thank you so much, Jay. Thank you for what you're doing. Well, I just went out. We do have a Facebook comment. What encouragement can you offer to parents whose kids are not ready or interested in recovery? We have to take a break, but I thought we could come back and speak to that if that works for you guys. Thank you, Facebook user. We're going to share some insights on that. Okay, we will be right back after this commercial break. Stay with us. Located at 121 Haddon Avenue in Westmont, New Jersey, is Margie Cedrone, artisan jeweler. Margie's been in business for more than 30 years. She works with her clients to create custom pieces of jewelry to reflect their personality and help them make their own bold statement. Starting in the renowned Jewelers Row in Center City, Philadelphia in 1988, Margie works directly with her clients to develop one-of-a-kind pieces such as necklaces, engagement rings, wedding bands, unique watches and tennis bracelets, as well as a myriad of rings and earrings for everyone in your family. She also has worked directly with Dr. Jacalyn over the years, creating unique pieces of jewelry to reflect her personality. She does pearl stringing and repairs on site at 121 Haddon Avenue. Call or text Margie at 215-384-7155. Margie Cedrone Jewelry is open by appointment only. Make your own bold statement.
My stomach issues make me want to stay home, but that's not an option. No matter how prepared I am, I still feel nervous. Enough is enough.
If this sounds familiar, the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation can offer you support and connect you with a specialist.
Don't keep your symptoms to yourself. Get help at spillyourguts.org today.
Ladies and gentlemen, here it is, the most listened to radio show on the planet. Even the other stations are tuned in too.
You're listening to Business Talk Radio, where we take business to the next level.
Hello and welcome back to Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn presents Conversations of Substance with my co-host Alex Kaplan and our special guest Jay Schiff, who is just sharing his incredibly personal story out there helping others every single day. So let's help somebody else.
Jay Shifman.
Jay Schiffman.
That's all right. A lot of people call me Jay Schiff. I thought you just were like, yeah, I know. We're friends now. That's what.
Yeah,
that's what
I just think you're Jay Schiff to me. Okay. Okay, so what encouragement can you offer to parents whose kids are not yet ready or interested in recovery?
So there is a concept that Alex and I spend a lot of time talking about. Now, I will say it's important to know here. I'm not sober like Alex is. Alex and I are very different in that respect. I am in recovery, obviously, going on 11 years now. But thankfully, I've never had an ill relationship with alcohol, and so I do drink. I just avoid the things I had problems with. And that's sort of an evolving understanding about recovery, is that for some people like Alex, sobriety is the way to go. And then for others, it's sort of a varying scale. And when you start understanding that concept, there's something in there that we like to practice called harm reduction. Basically, all harm reduction means is at some point, this person may need to be completely abstinent from all substances. At this point, the goal is to help them use more safely, or maybe a little bit less often, or whatever the case is per person. So in this case, I would say, practice a little bit of harm reduction ideas, right? If the kid is using in a really unsafe way, having that conversation, like, obviously we don't approve of this if you don't, but we want to see you use a little bit more safely. So don't, use and drive, or don't, whatever the case is that's really giving you pause. And you sort of check that one off and go, great, we've succeeded in that. Let's take the next step. Now we want you to use maybe a little bit less often, or I don't know, wait till you get your homework done, whatever the case is. So there's sort of the incremental change method to, at some point, that person is going to use, hopefully, in a way that is completely safe, or they're not going to use it all.
It's funny, and the thing is, I'm not against harm reduction. I'm not for or against anything. I think to each their own. Everybody's different, and we're all unique. To me, harm reduction, for me in my journey, it's just it's not worth the risk of it not working, because I've tried a lot of things in the past, and when I have tried to just have a drink, it always turns into more, and then I spiral. So I've realized that for me, in my journey, it's just like, it's not worth the risk. I don't need to find out. Having drinking in my life is not more important than having my wife and having another year of saying one Katie did not leave Alex. So it's just not worth the risk of finding out whether I can manage it or not. That's my philosophy around harm reduction. But when it comes to having anybody in your life who is struggling with addiction or substance misuse to any degree, it's really tricky. Like we still don't know exactly what to say to people, and that's something we're working on at Of Substance. Is we make quality short films about the shame, blame, and stigma surrounding substance abuse, so that we can build a tapestry of humanity throughout anecdotes and stories that maybe one day we'll be able to pinpoint, okay, a lot of people respond to this in this way. This is the thing to say, but we're really not sure what that is yet. I'm an open book. I'd love to put myself out there. I am not a substance use professional and a treatment professional. I know several different people in several different places in the field, and I'd love to put anybody in touch with those people. My email is alex@ofsubstance.org. And if you'd like to reach out to me, I'd be more than happy to put you in touch with the right people who can give you a more specific advice. But the way that I got sober, and I think that this is what I tell anybody, is just like, this isn't the thing that got me to say, okay, I got to go get sober. But one day, somebody very close to me, just like when I was at my very worst, said to me, Alex, why are you doing this? And I made up some bull excuse of just like, I don't even understand what you're talking about. But it planted a seed in the back of my mind. That question was just like, why are you doing this? Because it's not about what I'm doing. It's about why. It's not about going to the gym too much. It's why I'm going to the gym too much if I'm finally not drinking. Yeah, am I going to the gym to continue to escape whatever I'm running away from? Or am I going to the gym because I finally found something that makes me happy? And so that's what it's about. And usually when we're lost in substances, it's because we're running away from something. So posing that question and dropping that seed in the back of your loved one's head gets them to start thinking differently, and maybe have them start to ask themselves, why am I doing this? Do I want to keep doing this? What do I want to be doing? So that's my unprofessional insight into that.
Well, both of you you've added a lot of value. I'd like to hear from the person who posted that question to let us know, did that help at all? The other thing I'm wondering is, when is it that a person involved with someone who's going through this says, you know what, it's enough now. All these things have happened as a result of this person's behavior and what they're going through, but it's affected the family, it's affected our finances, so on and so forth. Is there a time, and if so, when is it, when you say, I've got to cut you off?
Ooh, that is probably the hardest question when it comes to this. And I would say that there is no blanket answer, this is really tough, because one of the things that I coach on is that if what you're saying to the person struggling with substance misuse doesn't work, if you're talking to someone struggling with cancer, then what you're saying doesn't work. That being said, obviously, I'm not blind to the fact that, those who are struggling through a battle with cancer rarely steal or harm others in trying to get their treatment. Now, there's a lot of social context there, right? If we took away chemotherapy, people would still, get chemotherapy. They would just have to do things to make that possible. So it's a really tricky question. And the short answer to this is, I know how hard that is from being the person on the other end. I know that it's there are days where it seems like nothing in the world makes sense and nothing in the world is good because of how hard this is. And I would say that, unfortunately, there's no good answer to that question. It is very personal and very particular to everybody.
Absolutely.
And I would also
go for it.
I would also think that if you do decide that, okay, I have to set a boundary, then you might be doing one of two things. Maybe you're empowering that person to look inside and take accountability and get help. Or maybe that's the last step, that you just are turning your back on somebody, and that is the last knife in their chest, if you know what I'm saying.
Well, it becomes something that's very much about yourself, right? Like the thing about addiction, the thing about substance misuse is that it doesn't happen in a vacuum. Like when somebody's struggling with something, it affects their entire environment and everybody in it. And so I talk to a lot of parents in Nar-Anon, Narcotics Anonymous, mothers and fathers and brothers and sisters and kids of those struggling with addiction. And they're there because they've been through the ringer. Like they've been manipulated and they've been lied to, and they just can't trust, and they need to protect themselves. And something that we talk about all the time when I talk to people in that situation is, Alex, you guys need to come up with some films that really focus on the difference between enabling and truly being supportive and being helpful. And it's so tricky because as a parent, often the answer goes against your instinct, which is actually do not nurture, do not feed that parental instinct of just like, yes, I'm going to help you, I'm going to do. Instead, it's actually create a bit of distance. And I'm not saying this is the right way. It's just this is one major way. That's just like when people ask me, I have somebody in my life and I think they have a problem. What do I say? And my answer is always, we're not really sure yet, but right now it's let them know you love them and you're here when they're ready, because you don't know what you need to say and you don't know if you're the right person to say it. But getting sober and waking up from whatever we struggle with is just like anything in life. You can hear the same 6 things from 6 different people, 6 different ways at 6 different times. And it's not until that 7th person says it at the right time, in the right way, in the right room, that it finally clicks. Usually, if the tighter and more dramatic our relationships are with those people, the less likely they are to take it without all of the coloring that colors our dramatic relationship. So it's just a tricky situation. But just
we have a couple of comments. Thanks, Alex. Harm reduction is an interesting idea, but it seems like a very slippery slope. I've seen families destroyed by the deceit and fake detox efforts. It was brutally painful for parents. And here's a second comment. If it works, though, then it's worth a try. I figure every day a kid wakes up above the dirt, leaves room for help. Thank you for sharing that.
So there's a really important point. There's a saying in those of us who practice or believe in the harm reduction idea, which is that you can't recover if you're dead. So yes, every day a person is above the dirt, it gives you a better chance to recover. And to the point of the parents, I can't understand how you're feeling from being someone who, was in the other role as the kid struggling. Now, I can tell you a horror story that I tell a lot of people, and that was I was working with a client who was struggling on and off with unsafe use of heroin, and his mother unfortunately was his trigger. And so there would be situations like, the guy was sober. In fact, was about a year in and was living at home, and his mom was cleaning his room one day and found a needle behind his dresser or whatever it was. And he didn't even know that was there. That was a thing that fell years ago, and she lost it on him. I can't believe you're getting back. Didn't even give him a chance to listen. Kicked him out of the house. Well, what do you think's going to happen? He's cut off, nowhere to go. He's homeless now. He immediately went back to using, and then he overdosed. And luckily, he lived, and that's when we got connected. So, of course, that is the extreme, right? That is does not happen all the time. But in that situation, you can draw a direct correlation between his mother, again, feeling the way she felt, which was very valid, but not handling it well. And even though he was in a very safe and very healthy position at that time, her actions directly related to him losing his sobriety. So in that moment, I have no idea what the mom is feeling. I can say, remember that you love this person, and that is what happened when you forgot that for a second. So it was really hard to see that. I mean, he had a lot of anger towards his mom, obviously, after that. And there was a lot of mistrust between them. But that is sort of the horror story I tell of what can happen when that relationship goes poorly.
Yeah. I was just thinking that for the parents out there, or anyone who's a caregiver or provider, it'd be great to hear from you. Is there a lot of guilt that goes along with understanding, not understanding, being fed up, you turning your back, throwing the person out? Do you feel guilt about that?
So something I was just thinking about is in the group I go to a couple of years ago, one of the guys in there asked us, guys, at what point did you start to believe that you could do this? Right. And we were taken aback. None of us really, we had to all kind of start to try to pinpoint it. And almost nobody can really pinpoint it. And that's the thing about it is, when we start on a journey of self-exploration, discovery, recovery, improvement, we don't ever think we can do it, especially when we haven't even started to try. We're down in the dark well. And we don't believe that we can do it. We're afraid of everything it will take and that we can't do it. And so having somebody around you who just reminds you that we're here to believe in you until you're ready to believe in yourself is probably as important as anything. So when it comes to harm reduction or going cold turkey or going to rehab or going to AA or going to we're just finding a very progressive group that's about just anything holistic. It doesn't matter. It's just not giving up on somebody and just letting somebody know that that you believe in them, and that we're here to believe in you until you're ready to believe in yourself is as powerful as it gets. So when it comes to harm reduction or anything, it's just just try. I know that you can do this, even though you don't know that you can do this. I believe that you can do this, even though you don't believe that you can do this. So whether it's harm reduction and chilling out and doing a little bit less, let's talk about it. Just try. And once you start to try a little bit, you start to see that I can do a little bit better than I thought I could, and a little bit better. And I can at least try. Even if I'm falling down, I'm at least trying. And I deserve all the recognition for showing up every day and giving my best and falling and getting back up and trying again.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I have a question for you. So someone who used to be in my life somehow got my phone number and called me, and I knew that the person had gone through 12-step because they called me way back then to tell me. And they called me 2 different times to ask me for money, and a large sum of money, and had seen me on Facebook and presumed that I would have this large sum of money and that I would give it to this person. And I remember the first time the person called, was unknown caller, my heart was just racing and I felt panic stricken. I thought, oh my gosh, I have to help this person. But then I knew that it wasn't going to help the person because I knew the person's behavior. And then the person called again, 2 or 3 months later. What do you do when someone reaches out to you for money and you know that, first of all, the reason they're calling you they must have gone through everyone else, right? How do you handle that? Because I don't know that I handle it the right way. I just said, don't ever call me again.
Woof. I mean, like, I don't know. I have ideas. What about you, Jay?
So, weird coincidence. I was just talking to someone about this yesterday. I have a good friend of mine who, kind of a sad story, actually. He was saving up for his business, and somebody who was in his life like that, sort of one step removed or even two steps, hit him up and said, I need $5,000 for this thing. And, he kind of was like, I don't know, man. But the guy was like really persistent. And there was stories about some health struggles. And so he, being a nice guy, he said, I don't have that money. I've got a little bit. I've got friends that do. And he didn't call me, but other people. And of course, this person took off. And now, to my buddy's credit, he went out and got a job and was like, I'm paying back all my friends. I feel personally responsible for this, which is incredibly admirable.
Nice.
In that moment, so he was asking me, he was like, what, does this ever happen to you? What do you do? And I was like, it's happened to me once. And now I'm a guy who comes from privilege. And so people in my life know that. And so I get people, not all the time, but occasionally hit me up. And the one time that it was very blatant, kind of like what you were just describing, where it was multiple attempts, I sort of tried to shift that conversation. I was like, I can't just give you money. Now, in this scenario, I was like, I would love to talk to you about your plan and see if I can help in any way, stress out some of these ideas. I would love to introduce you to some people I know who work in finance. Maybe they can give you a loan. There was also, again, like I said, in this one, but also in my example, a health situation. I was like, can I watch your kids? Can I do anything like that? And when they kept saying, no, I just need money, it became super clear that this wasn't actually about my ability to help this person, and that there was something else going on there. So in the terms of your question of how to be how can you help this person feel like you want to, offer things like that. Say, what else can I do? Try to make it so that it's not just about money. And if they keep coming back to money, well, then, like you said, there's something else going on there. But if they do take you up on some of those offers, maybe there is some help you can provide that doesn't leave you exposed the way that just like handing them money would or something.
Yeah, agreed. And this person wanted $100,000.
Oof! Wow. So that's a lot more than the $5,000 I was talking about.
Take a number, please. Next.
Oh man.
Just to be sure we don't run out of time,
Yes.
Jay, do you mind telling everybody where they can find you and everything about you?
Well, if you want $100,000, don't come calling me. You can find me at my website, which is just jayshifman.com, JAYSHIFMAN.com. Find me on social media anywhere. I'm either Jay Shifman or Choose Your Struggle. And the Choose Your Struggle podcast is literally everywhere. Anywhere that you listen to podcasts, it's there. And I would definitely say check out an early episode from this season where you heard from Mr. Alex Kaplan about his full story and all the work that Of Substance is doing. It was a really good episode.
No matter what I do, he'll always turn it around and promote me more than I'll ever be able to promote him. It's amazing.
My goal.
Yes. That is definitely amazing.
Yeah. Jay, thanks so much. Yeah. Oh, go for it.
No, I just was going to say, so for people watching the show, can they call you Jay Schiff, or is that just between you and me?
They can call me, as I love to say, you can call me anything you want except late for dinner. I will answer to it. And I've had people, you wouldn't know, I mean, all the ridiculous ways people have spelled Shifman. I don't think it's that hard, but some people find ways. So you can call me anything you want. Jay Schiff is a pretty common one.
And if people want to be on your podcast, they can also reach out to you the same way, right?
Yeah, so on my website, if you go to the contact me page, there's a whole thing about why you're looking to get in touch with me, and I get a lot of pitches. So if I tell you I'm going to add you to my list, please don't be offended. I do have a couple other projects. Alex is one of those lucky people who's been on multiple of my things, but there are a lot of things I got going on, and if you reach out, odds are you will find yourself on one of them. So definitely, if you have a story to tell, if you have ideas, if you work in the substance misuse, the drug use, the mental health field, reach out. I would love to chat with you and figure out how we're going to work together.
Everything Jay does is about lifting other people up. So he'll find a way to help you tell your story. Jay, if you leave our listeners with one thing today, like to keep in mind, what would that be?
Yeah, so I thank you for reminding me, because I never go with an appearance without saying reach out. It's so important, from being that guy who was in that moment of rock bottom, like Alex can tell you as well. you feel like there's nobody in your life who will listen, which is complete baloney. There are so many people who love you and want to be there, but the stigma around this is real. The shame is real. And so not wanting to reach out makes sense. It's not rational, but it makes sense. So please reach out. There's a saying that those of us who do this work have, and that is we'd rather spend 2 hours listening to you today than 2 hours at your funeral tomorrow. So please reach out. You can find me on my website, find me wherever. I will be there if you truly do not think there's anyone else in your life who will listen. I think you're wrong, but if you truly feel that way, please reach out to me. I'd love to chat.
And this is Jay Shifman.
So wonderful. Thank you for that, Jay. Thank you for being here today. It's been a pleasure meeting you, and I love everything that you're doing, and I hope you'll come back and see us again and give us some updates on what Jay Shifman is up to.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Perfect. We'll see you backstage in just a minute. Thank you. Well, sir, that was fantastic. Thank you for bringing such a person of high integrity and quality who really cares about other people.
Thank you for giving us all this space to speak openly and help others. Jacalyn, you lift up everyone in your life. We're all lucky to have you.
Well, thank you, Alex. So do you. And I'm very excited. Not only did we have this great show with such important messaging, but that nothing crashed with me running the broadcast. So yay.
Nailed it.
So, Alex, I will see you next week. And it's been a pleasure having you here. What would you like to say to our audience before we sign off?
You're not crazy. Others get it. And there is hope. Don't worry, guys.
And I'm looking for your banner, but while I do, where can we find you?
Please visit ofsubstance.org, where you can learn all about Substance, the work we do, the impact we're making. Email me directly at alex@ofsubstance.org. Watch our films. They're free resources that are available on our site. And we are also setting up as many free movie workshops as we possibly can to come to your community, to your school, to your company, to your group of friends or family to talk about shame and isolation through addiction in a fun and engaging way. So please reach out. We'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to come meet you.
And Alex, for anybody watching, any Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn audience member who wants to reach out about the movie workshops, you will have a special offer for them, which is running across the screen right now, right?
Yes, they are free.
Free
now. These don't cost anything. We are just looking to come, make impact, help, and start some conversations while we watch some movies you actually like watching. And that's it. Yeah, so just give us a call. We want to set it up, and we want to come to your world.
Fantastic. Thank you, my friend, for being here. I will see you backstage in just a minute. And to our audience, I always say after every show, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for being here, for watching. Thank you for those of you who sent in questions. And nobody called, and I've got this whole thing set up, but I'm hoping you'll call for the next show, which is at 2:00. And also, we've been running some promotions on our website for commercials, for editing, and we're going to run them through the end of the week. So if you do want to have a commercial made and have us be a sponsor, please go to drjacalyn.com so that we can get you in here while the prices are rock bottom. Okay. So we will see you at 2:00 here. We've got the business show with my friend and co-host, Mr. Alcini, and our special guest is Mitchell Chi. We'll see you later. Bye.